part one of the video, Pavanji, we all know that cyber law is something which has originated, say, just about 2 decades or less back. So, what is special about cyber law? How is it different than other branches of law dealing with crimes?
Thank you, sir. Cyber law is an evolving discipline. So, as compared to other disciplines, cyber law is special for the very simple reason that all the principles have still not evolved in cyber law jurisprudence at the time when we talk. So, when the discipline is only 2 decades old, clearly it has to take its own teething times. Further, technology is something that's a great teacher. It's constantly evolving. And with the advent of new technologies, the legal frameworks are constantly getting challenged. Internet made geography history, and therefore it came up with a unique imaginary legal concept of cyberspace. Now, if you want to touch cyberspace, you can't touch cyberspace. But yes, you can feel it. You can do activities in cyberspace, but you cannot really pinpoint as to where exactly is the physical location in cyberspace. Because internet makes geography history, it also gives you the ability to be anonymous by hiding behind the cloak of anonymity. Not completely anonymous, but yes, relatively anonymous. That brings across its own unique, distinctive challenges. Typically, laws have already developed in different jurisdictions as per the peculiar societal requirements of those jurisdictions. However, for the first time, we now have an international paradigm called cyberspace, which is available across the world. You can be sitting in Antarctica and also accessing the internet and targeting systems based in Australia. Similarly, any person can be sitting in Africa and specifically can actually be doing e-commerce with somebody way back in Brazil. So clearly, when you're talking of this global international scenario called cyberspace, it actually begins to start throwing huge number of legal, policy and regulatory issues. Now, these issues are what's sought to be covered under this broad umbrella of cyber law. Now, for law teachers, you would need to know that earlier cyber law, when it evolved, had a very specific focus only on e-commerce or electronic governance related legal frameworks. But as time has passed by and as internet has now been an integral part of our lives, cyber law is a much more broader discipline. It covers not just all activities in cyberspace, but also deals with activities using computers, computer systems, computer networks, computer resources, communication devices, as also data and information in the electronic form. Every day, some new development is happening somewhere in the world. As a cyber law teacher, you need to be aware of what these new developments are, incorporate the same as an integral part of your teaching class, and then sensitize your students in this regard. At the end of the day, cyber law is a journey which all of us have to walk together. Nobody is a complete master, but yes, if we can start sharing our perspectives on cyber law with other digital stakeholders and other students, that can actually go a long way in not just empowering students and the digital stakeholders at large, but also contribute towards a safe, secure, and reliable cyberspace.
Fine. Pavanji, now you are a law professional essentially, and you have during your degree studies gone through and you were taught different subjects. Now I'd like to know that how is the teaching of cyber law different than other subjects, say taxation or constitution, jurisprudence, etc.
Whenever you teach traditional legal subjects, you are at a level of comfort. Why? Because these subjects have been with us for the last many centuries. The jurisprudence is well evolved, and now you know very crystal clearly as per the established legal principles as to what is the current legal position. Yes, there will be some case laws, there will be some new legal developments, but by and large, the landscape of jurisprudence is pretty much well established. But when I come to cyber law, I quickly start realizing that this is one particular area of study or of teaching which is constantly evolving. Consequently, we find that you as a law teacher have to constantly keep on updating yourself about the latest developments. Why? Because number one, your students can ask you. Number two, you are expected to know. And number three, when you share these newly emerging developments with your law students, they tend to get opened up to new vistas of potential new opportunities and challenges that cyberspace is beginning to throw up. Clearly, I think cyberspace is a very dynamic space. And now with the coming of COVID-19, cyberspace has become an integral part of our lives. Everybody is dependent on the internet and cyberspace. Therefore, you can no longer say that I'm sitting in an island, silent. I can no longer say that, look, I'm alone and I'm not in the world. It's actually an ecosystem where everybody is getting connected. So therefore, when you're teaching cyber law, you have to be mindful of the fact that a big chunk of your class is not only going to look at some of the existing legal principles as of now, but also look at new possibilities, new opportunities of how the legal jurisprudence can evolve. Because today, at the end of 2022, we are standing, supposing we was to write a book on cyber law of 100 pages in 2030, then I can tell you that if that book was to be of 100 pages, then by the end of 2022, we've only written the fourth or the fifth page. That means more than 90 plus pages will have to be written. That will just give you an inkling of why cyber legal jurisprudence is constantly evolving and how, as a law teacher, you need to be aware of these newly emerging developments in cyber legal jurisprudence.
I must compliment you for your precise and the sort of clear understanding. To some extent, you have already covered. My next question is, what strategies should a law faculty evolve when he or she sets down to teaching cyber law?
As a cyber law teacher, you cannot have set strategies, you cannot have set programs. The reason for this is, your curriculum could give you a broad direction of what you have to teach. For example, if you were to teach, say, on data protection, and you were to take a class on data protection for your law students, you know, broadly speaking, what has happened so far, which is that in the European Union, there's a general data protection regulation, which has become the global gold standard on data protection. You know, in India, there's still no dedicated law on data protection, though there are certain specific provisions on data protection under the Information Technology Act 2000 and rules and regulations made thereunder. But if you were to teach that particular class on data protection, then a good element will be that, look, today when we talk, the Indian government has just now released the draft of the Indian Digital Personal Data Protection Bill 2022. These are new developments. This is new legislation that's appearing on the horizon. So, number one, please incorporate the latest legal developments that you are effectively seeing in your specific session or your class or your subject that you're planning to cover in a particular area. Number two, it's a good idea also to look at some international experiences so as to give the students a comparative analysis of what's happening in other jurisdictions versus what's happening in your country. Now, India is special. Why? Because by the end of 2023, we will become the most populous nation in the world, after even beating China. And therefore, what happens in India, to a large extent, will become a precursor of what the model the different other countries in the world will have to follow. So please go ahead and teach what's the current developments happening in India. Another strategy that you can actually incorporate is trying to get case studies. Now, case studies are something that work like magic. Why? Because when you give case studies to your students and you begin with case studies, they are instantaneously connected with you because their mind starts working. They are able to independently identify with what the actual facts of these said cases are. And every day, so many cases are happening. So if you could pick up some of the cases that you have read in the last 1 week, which are just instances which are reported in the public domain, they could actually become as anonymous case studies or even named case studies in your specific teaching. And number three, do not go with the mindset that you know everything in cyberspace or in cyber law. Why? Because your students are equally very tech savvy. So the chances of them having read something more, something new, something innovative cannot be ruled out. Hence, be open with your students and tell with them that, look, in cyber law, we are all students and we are all learning together. I will tell you something that I know. I'll be happy to hear about something that you know, and potentially we can share certain examples. And finally, I think it's always a great idea if you can actually come up with some kind of an imaginary case study and open it up for panel discussion or just group discussion within the class. Give them an anonymous case study and, sir, this is the position that's happened. What do you say? And let the students open up. I mean, the kind of questions and the answers that are going to come out of that discussion is itself going to be one of the most, shall I say, learning experiences for students, because they will be able to identify how the principles of cyber law are practically getting implemented in the practical day-to-day case studies that are evolving. So those are some key elements that you have to keep in mind. But you, as a law teacher, will have to constantly keep on updating yourself. Because the chances are that your students, while you're teaching them, are likely to immediately go to the internet in the class, look at something up, and pose a question, basically with an intention that there may not be any answer for the question. And if there is no answer, no problem. Let's share with the students that yes, cyber law jurisprudence is evolving. We are only discovering. We can look at permutations and combinations, but together we can all contribute in the evolution of cyber legal jurisprudence.
One question comes to my mind is that a student may well ask the faculty as to the career prospects. Why should he take the study seriously with a view to get into a career relating to cyber law and cyber crimes?
That's one of the most favorite questions that students like to ask today. Why should I take cyber law? What kind of a career will I have? And as a law teacher, you can sensitize them that sky is the limit as far as cyber law as a career is concerned. Earlier, cyber law was pretty much limited, focused to just lawyers. Now, cyber law has got global, universal applicability. Today, if you do cyber law, you have n number of new business or career opportunities. Number one, you can be a specialized lawyer in cyber law. Number two, you can be an in-house counsel with some company, because today a lot of companies are dealing with electronic format and they require lawyers with dedicated expertise on cyber law. Number three, you can actually work in various international organizations who are working on cyber legal issues, whether it's UNCTAD, whether it's UNESCO or other legal entities, including the ITU. Number four, you can actually work with a number of governmental organizations in policy making, because a lot of government organizations are currently in the process of evolving the policies in this context. Number five, you can also go for a cyber arbitration, because now a lot of arbitrations are evolving which have got cyber legal elements, and you could potentially be specializing in the same. And number six, you could even go ahead and specialize yourself in electronic evidence, because that's one big area that's coming up, because every case that's now happening will have electronic evidence, but that evidence will have to be produced and proved as admissible evidence in court of law. So you could specialize in electronic evidence. You can just about work with any NGO. You can work with any kind of an organization that requires policy, legal, regulatory aspects and inputs concerning cyberspace. So sky's the limit. You can even be an advisor to some companies, some governments. There are a lot of permutations and combinations, and now with these new emerging technologies coming in, whether it's artificial intelligence, blockchain, Internet of Things, and quantum computing, more doors of opportunities are opening up for you. Maybe you won't want to go and specialize yourself in artificial intelligence law and work for companies that are only working in artificial intelligence. Metaverse is coming in a big way, and the legal issues of metaverse are already beginning to evolve. Maybe you would like to contribute in that particular direction. Maybe you would like to be an academic. You would like to go ahead and teach cyber law. So endless opportunities. It's all up to you. Which is the big area that you want to focus on? Please go in that particular area. Go and specialize yourself, and you'll find the sky's the limit as far as new business and career opportunities are concerned.
In a very lucid manner, you have indicated the enormous opportunities which this branch of law offers to the students. And very much connected to it is that before one thinks of a career and a job, where should and where would you recommend that the student should go for internship to grasp the basics of cyber law?
Sir, today internships have to play a very important role for you if you want to learn cyber law. Your first immediate default option is please go and do an internship with a cyber lawyer, with a lawyer who's working in cyber law. Why? Because that internship is going to expose you to practical day-to-day working and applicability of the provisions of cyber law at large. Number two, you can also go and do internship in organizations, whether it's electronic commerce organizations, artificial intelligence organizations, blockchain companies, who are working in specific disciplines of technology, and try understanding how these new technologies are evolving, so that your mind could be opening up to the legal ramifications and possibilities for the same. And number three, it will be a great idea if you could actually go ahead and even potentially go and do internship with, say, any international conference that's working on cyber law. I am right now the conference director of the International Conference on Cyber Law, Cybercrime, and Cyber Security, which is happening for the last 9 years. So, if you're involved in the organization of this conference, which has 55 sessions, 210 speakers globally, you get a new perspective of interacting with international thought leaders, of learning from them, and opening up your minds. And finally, I think it'll be a great idea if you can actually assist any of these cyber law authors who are looking and or working on new books on cyber law. Mind you, there are very less number of books on cyber law as compared to traditional disciplines. So if an author is working on new cyber law book, go and intern with that author so that you can research with him and then give him the relevant inputs. And also there are some specific legislative organizations and policy organizations that are only working on research of cutting edge issues. You could even go ahead and work with them. So a lot of opportunities, but yes, don't confine yourself only to the classroom. Do as many internships as you can in as many fields of technology that you can before you really start embarking onto your journey on cyber law as a career.
Thank you, Pavanji. This brings us to the end of part 1. Shortly, we will move to part 2.